Good evening, everyone. I am Gabriela Grasso, and I am the Delco Death Doula. And I'm filming this video blog for you today as a delayed installment on my Thanatology Thursday posts. I meant to post this on Thursday. Unfortunately, life gets out of hand a little bit. I am lucky enough to have started a new full-time job this week, so things have been a little crazy. So just in your mind, travel back to last Thursday and pretend that I'm bringing it to you then. And if you don't recall back that far, a few days ago, I would like to address something that happened in the previous week, which was the death of Justice Ruth Bader Ginsburg. I spent a few days thinking about how I wanted to discuss her death on my blog, and unfortunately, I couldn't come up with the best way that I wanted to go about it. Her loss is personal to me. As many of you know, in addition to being a death doula, I am also a certified and licensed attorney in the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania. And my thought on her death is that even if you don't agree with her politics and her liberal jurisprudence, you recognize that as a lawyer, as a law professor, and then as a federal judge, she opened a lot of doors for women like me. And I really, I'm not at a point yet where I know how to talk about this monumental loss in my own life, a loss that I am personally grieving, without discussing politics and getting into the nitty-gritty of all of that. And I don't want to bring that to you in this relationship, because that's not my role as a death doula. So I'm going to continue thinking about how I want to address her death, and then hopefully a little further down the line I'll be able to bring something to you that is thoughtful and deserving of her enormous life and the effect that she's had on all of us. So stay tuned for that. So that was supposed to be 2 weeks ago, Thursday, and then this past Thursday, we woke up to some more really just stunning and sad news, which was the news that Chrissy Teigen and John Legend lost their baby at around 20 weeks of pregnancy, which is about halfway to full term. So today I'd like to take the next few minutes and talk about childbearing losses, because I think that the loss of baby Jack, which was Chrissy and John's baby's name, has really brought that to the forefront over the last couple of days. And it's a topic that we don't spend enough time talking about. And there are reasons for that, which we'll get into. But I just felt so deeply that maybe some of you out there tonight need somebody to give some words to those losses. I'm personally a huge fan of John Legend, and I'm an even bigger fan of his wife, Chrissy Teigen. I just think that they are cool people who seem very down to earth and very much real, as much as they can be real in the light of all of the celebrity and fame and fortune that they have attained over these last, few years. I own both of Chrissy's cookbooks. They're wonderful, even though I'm not half the cook that Chrissy Teigen is. And I really appreciate their smart and witty presence on social media. And the thing that I love most about it, especially from Chrissy, is that I can tell that she doesn't have anybody else manage that for her. That when she says things publicly on social media that we all consume, that's the real her, and that's what her real thoughts are. And over the past few years, she has really cultivated this presence online of being very transparent and very open and honest with her fans and followers. We have watched Chrissy Teigen go through the IVF process, and then the births of her two children, Luna and Miles. And she was very open and honest about the work that it took for her and John to have those beautiful children. And then even after they were born, she was very open and honest about her breastfeeding journey. And all of these things are things that normal, non-celebrity women hear about and may talk about in their small circles, but there's really no public outlet for the feelings that accompany childbearing and all the craziness that comes with it. So I've really, even though I'm not a parent yet myself, I've really appreciated Chrissy's open honesty and sometimes really raw, gritty feelings on these topics. And I also appreciate that they remain, normal parents, even though they're in the public eye. They seem like a very beautiful and well-adjusted family who really loves each other, and I really can't say enough good things about them. I think that they're wonderful people, and I think that their children are going to grow into wonderful people. And I'll be clear. I'll be honest with you. I have a little bit of envy for their family. So naturally, because I'm a follower of Chrissy Teigen, I saw a few months ago that she posted on her social media that she was pregnant again with their third child, and that she got pregnant naturally, meaning not through IVF as she had Luna and Miles, but through intercourse with her husband, and never expected that would happen. Didn't think that was a possibility for her because they had tried and it wasn't happening, which is why they pursued IVF with Luna and Miles. So it was very clear that she was surprised, but that she was also ecstatic, could not wait to be a mother to this new baby. And I just thought it was beautiful. And I remember texting all of my friends how happy and excited I was for Chrissy and John, as if they were my own personal close friends. And then about a month ago, I started to notice that her posts took a different tone. Chrissy was placed on bed rest after an ultrasound showed that she had what she says is a very weak placenta. And I could tell that was difficult for her because Chrissy is always up. She's always spending time with her kids and, of course, cooking. So for her to be in bed for a month, I can't imagine that was fun. But throughout it all, she said, baby is healthy. He's moving around. He's strong. And we're going to get through this. And then, unfortunately, late last week, Chrissy started hemorrhaging, and she was placed in the hospital. And after a few days of being monitored by the very best doctors that there are in America, she learned that the baby, unfortunately, was dead, and that she had to deliver the child at 20 weeks. And accompanying this post was a series of the most heart-wrenching photos you've ever seen of Chrissy, undergoing serious medical care, and then with John holding their beautiful baby Jack. The response on my own personal social media feeds from my friends and my family was overwhelming. In the death industry, we call childbearing losses silent sorrows. Because despite the fact that childbearing losses are incredibly common, they're the kinds of things that we don't talk about enough. Um, and so before I get into that and the reasons why, I do want to clarify a few definitions, just for you so that you have them in the back of your mind the next time somebody tells you they're going through a loss of this kind. So a miscarriage is the loss of a pregnancy before 20 weeks. So as I said earlier, 20 weeks is the midway point, when a baby is born at 40. And a stillbirth is anything from 21 weeks to birth. And the reason that I bring that up is simply because I saw a lot of information, a lot of things floating around out there about Chrissy Teigen's loss and calling it a miscarriage when that's not quite accurate, because this baby was beyond the point where it could be miscarriage. It's classified as a stillbirth, and I don't know the specifics in Chrissy's case, but it is, it is probable that there was a certificate of stillbirth issued by the state of California that would have acknowledged Jack's birth and death simultaneously. And that is not to say that miscarriage is any less devastating, because miscarriage is quite devastating, and it's quite a lot more common than we think. The thing about miscarriage is we have a tendency to respond to news of a miscarriage with saying, well, it wasn't meant to be, or it was too early to really have formed an attachment, when you don't know if that's true or not. But it is a different type of loss. And it's a different type of loss because this child, Jack, was able to be held and caressed and loved by his parents until he had to be taken away for whatever interment he is going to undergo. And that might sound a little morbid, but this is actually encouraged. It's encouraged by doctors, by therapists, by death doulas such as myself, that if you experience a stillbirth with a child that is more than halfway to term, to hold the child, to kiss the child, to name the child, and to spend time, because that helps with the grief. Because the grief is overwhelming. But to go back to miscarriage, grief at the loss of a baby that was so early in pregnancy that you wouldn't be able to hold it or love it after it passes is still natural and normal and expected. Miscarriage and stillbirth are both devastating losses, and often mothers can experience miscarriage multiple times in their childbearing years. And most devastating of all, I think, is the fact that miscarriage and stillbirth have a tendency to be very isolating to mothers, because we don't talk about this enough. The number one response I saw on my own personal social media pages when Chrissy and John lost baby Jack was, I was just like them. I went through this too. I am so sad and so heartbroken for John and Chrissy, and I hope they know that there are millions of mothers out there going through the same exact thing. And I also saw posts saying, "Thank you, Chrissy and John, for being so transparent about your journey and about your loss, because it makes me feel like I'm not alone." And my main message tonight to all of you mothers, to all of you women entering your childbearing years, and to all the children they produce, is you're not alone. No matter what you're suffering through, no matter what you're grieving, there is somebody out there that shares your pain. And if you can't find that person, please reach out to me. I will hold space for you, and I will hold your grief in my own heart. I want to thank Chrissy and John, and I don't know if they'll ever see this video, for sharing their story. Not only the joyous beginning, but the heartbreaking ending. And know that you have at least one huge fan out there who is holding space for your grief. And that I wish you and Luna and Miles and baby Jack and all of your families every good wish in my heart. I want to encourage mothers who experience these types of losses to share them within their means. We all know how horrible social media can be, but it is also a public good. It is a public good when it allows mothers who are suffering childbearing losses to connect, to grieve together, and to let that pain be held by another. Before I leave this conversation, I do also want to bring up the subject of induced abortion. And the reason I bring it up is because we don't talk about abortion and miscarriage and stillbirth in the same conversation, hardly ever. And they do belong in the same conversation. Because yes, while somebody who chooses to terminate their pregnancy can feel a great sense of relief, it's also likely that they're feeling grief, remorse, anger, regret, and they can feel all of these things at once. Our emotions are so complex. So I want to say to women who have had abortions that I see you, that I hold space for you, and that I count you among childbearing losses, because there is nothing easy about making that decision. And there is nothing easy about the termination of a pregnancy, no matter how it's done. Your grief is valid. And there is a safe space for you. Guys, this was a hard one. They're not always easy. Unfortunately, death is heavy. But I hope you appreciated this conversation, even if you couldn't enjoy it. And I hope to see you again on the next installment of Thanatology Thursday. Thank you and good night.